All right, everybody, welcome to the Abundance to Give podcast here today. Very excited to have an incredible guest with an awesome story in the online space for, let's say, education, motivation with Tony Robbins. We'll talk about all the other people you've been involved with, but Kristen Williams is here today, all the way from the East Coast in South Carolina. So welcome on in.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here today with you.
So, we always preface this because with the podcast being Abundance to Give, we'll get into tactics and strategies and kind of where you're at, where you're trying to go. But tell me a little bit more about 3 layers deep of some passion projects, causes and things that are near and dear to your heart. Usually it's by way of how you've been, brought up, your surroundings and things, whether or not you donate, philanthropy, anything like that. There's got to be passions and causes that are closest to you, and how giving to those at some point in the future will bring about abundance in your life.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about those.
Yeah. So there's actually a couple that I have. So before I actually started the event business, I had this passion project where I wanted it to become a business, which was called Lights On. And it was really dedicated for women who struggle with self-image to learn how to be more confident. Because I actually, until I was 25, used to get ready with the lights off. And so I had...
Really?
Yes. Yeah, I thought I was so ugly that I couldn't get ready with the lights on.
That's crazy. I guess you're right. A lot of women probably do struggle with that, and we can get into that. But obviously, I'm a man, so I can't relate with that, but I can hear about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So until I was 25, that was a really big struggle of mine. And so when I first started in the internet marketing space, I had no idea that this industry even existed. And I come from a background of a very small town. It's called Laurinburg, North Carolina. It's the place that you pass on your way to the beach. And it's a very poor city where, I never knew what was possible until I started this industry. And so that was the moment I was oh, I want to become an entrepreneur. And at the time, I didn't know what my skill set was. So I was what I can do is help other people with self-image. So I created a whole course that eventually one day it'll be a passion project that I'll want to help young women just learn how to show up and be themselves and be able to get ready with the lights on and not judge themselves so harshly.
Absolutely. Tell me about your upbringing a little bit. Obviously, growing up in that smaller town, challenges you dealt with, and kind of, were there moments in your childhood that you can kind of go to that have maybe helped you out and led you to where you're at today?
Yeah. So I will say I have a terrible memory, and I don't really remember so much of my childhood and what caused me to grow up and really see myself the way that I did. But I would say I was always the person, when I was younger, I did well in school and, I was that go-getter. But once I hit that middle age, age point, I really lost direction in my life. And I would say from, I feel middle school until I was around that 25, when I fell into this industry, I was completely lost. I was working, I was nothing wrong with working in a restaurant, but that's what I was doing. I was bartending restaurants. I tried telemarketing, but I just had no goal and no direction. And I don't really know why. And then at 25, my father actually passed away. And that was when I had this moment that was there has to be something more. I shouldn't be struggling with turning the lights on, and there has to be something else. And luckily, at that point, I fell into this industry that gave me just inspiration and hope to see what's possible, because I kind of was a person that didn't fit into, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to be all those traditional titles. But I knew I wanted to get out of Laurinburg. And I think what got me to where I am today is so much conviction that I wouldn't end up in the small town, that I pushed through and I was able to find this job, find this career. And then now I have the resiliency and the dedication to actually launch my own business, because I was so convicted in the fact that I will never end up in a small town and not be able to pay my bills. And there's things that happened that I saw that I was just I want to be an independent woman.
So that they always say, and I'd like to get your response on this, that people make decisions in life, right, to move and do things in their life based on pain or pleasure, pain or pleasure. And if you ask people, they'll tell you it's pleasure, right? 75% of people will tell you, oh, it's pleasure. I'm moving towards something, moving this. That's BS. A vast majority of the people, it's actually the opposite. It's pain. So in your case, being in a small town and seeing this and seeing that, not winning this, like that pain of that or the fear of that drove you to do this and to stay the course and to go through the tough times. Comment on that thought. And then would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I would say, because I will tell you what I did know is what I didn't want. I struggled with what do I actually want in life? What is this vision for my life? Like, I didn't really have that, but I knew what I didn't want. And so I think it was really hard. Like, when you don't have a goal and a vision, it's kind of like it's just accidentally, like you fall into this place. But it was always knowing that I cannot end up here. And so I was making decisions from a place of, will it get me to this next step? And luckily, it got me to a company where I got to see, Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, like all of these people who are doing these amazing things that built something out of nothing. So I don't know if that answered your question. I went on a rant.
Yeah, no, it totally did, because it's usually that place of pain that will keep you going through the tough times. And I always tell any of the mentees and people I talk to, money's a good motivator. It is. But once you've made some of it, it's not going to keep you motivated. So you have to have some underlying powers and pressures and things that get you out of bed every day.
Yeah.
And whether that is philanthropy, whether it's moving away from something painful that you don't want any part of because it was such a stain in your mind that you're like, I can't go there. I need to avoid that. So I'm going to keep pushing when I don't want to get up in the morning, when I don't maybe want to go to the gym, when I don't want to do all these things that I have to do to push my business professionally and personally. And all these things you need to do, because money will be a great motivator to get you going, but it will not keep you going.
Yeah.
And so having these things that are kind of your self-motivators are critical. I guess that leads on to the next question is, tell me about the Tony Robbins stuff. Tell me about the Russell Brunson. What company were you involved with? And was it their companies, or was it a third party that was doing work for them? And then we'll get into what you learned.
Yeah. So I worked for a company called Sage Event Management. And at first, we were an in-person event company. And so I went to school for hospitality. So I was like, yeah, like events, like that sounds cool. Like that kind of falls to that hospitality industry. So that was how I fell into it. And the first part of my career, we didn't work with really those big names until COVID happened, because we ended up being that company that pivoted, because this industry, when you're in the coaching industry, you're having events to enroll people into your coaching program and be a huge cash injection for your business for the year. And so a lot of people were like, what do I do now? I just lost like a big leg of my marketing strategy. And they were willing to take a bet on this whole virtual event. And we were running this event, and Dean Graziosi was a client of ours for in-person at the time, who knew Tony Robbins and had a really good connection, was like, hey, you should see what this little company is doing. And Tony came to the studio that we were using at the time and was like, this is really cool, but this could be better. And that's how that whole virtual arena came about that you've seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So the one in Phoenix, Arizona.
So his is actually,
is it
that
one?
one's Dean Graziosi's, the one that you've seen in my reel. Tony's is in Florida. And it's,
Gotcha. Yeah, where he lives.
It's like a huge dome.
Wow. Yeah. How much did he pay for that?
Yeah, how much did they pay for the studio?
For all that, all the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So with virtual events, like you can have like the up level virtual studios, but they cost anywhere from like $10,000 a day to, I know there's one that's $50,000 for a 3-day event. And then I don't know how much Tony Robbins is, but I know a similar one, and it's $100,000 for 3 days. So it just really depends on how up leveled you want your experience to be.
So, but how much did it cost them to build it? That was my
How much do
question.
they cost to build? I don't 100% know, but I know those LED walls, like this normal size, is like $100,000 in itself. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I would have thought it would be more, but I guess, I'm going off of my buddy Jeff Fenster, who built himself a studio in his office recently, like a whole podcast. And I mean, things wild. It's like literally a TV station.
Wow.
And I've never seen anything like it. And he spent about $250 for that thing. So I guess it just depends on the equipment, right? The cameras, the video screens, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, I was blown away when I saw those types of ovals and the surrounds and what Tony does. And so Dean did another one similar, just smaller.
Yeah, very similar. It's like a curved LED wall in the back and in the front.
So we kind of left off with the event space and how you got into a Dean Graziato, and it was at Sage?
Sage Event Management, yeah.
Yeah, Sage Management and stuff. How long were you there? And then talk about the different people you work with, what you learned from it, and now how you're pulling that out to kind of jump into the world yourself and help people out.
Yeah. So when I first started, as I mentioned, it was an in-person company. And so I started as a production assistant. At that time, our biggest, most popular client that you've probably heard of maybe is Jeff Walker, who is the person who created Product Launch Formula. And so he was like the connector for this company and how we actually got Dean Graziosi and Russell Brunson. But at first, I was a production assistant where I learned all things that's just more like admin of an in-person event. And then I moved into a producer, which is where I learned the hotel and all that. But what I really fell in love with was more of the buyer psychology. And so my boss at the time was the only strategist. So I was more of an event planner and producer. And she was what we call an event strategist, which is really about how do you create an offer and then monetize it and sell it through a 3-day event. It was really what we specialized in. And
gotcha.
Yeah. And so I just fell in love with the marketing piece and the psychology piece where I just listened to every single thing that she said and just really started to think like her, where they were once we went virtual, we kind of all first kind of started in the same role because it was figuring out how do you take an in-person event and make it into a virtual one. So looking at every single piece of the business of an event and how can you make this into a virtual component so that you're increasing the conversion. So it's how do you create community in a virtual event versus just teaching at a virtual event? So those little nuances. And then we started working with Tony Robbins. And so at the time when I was working with the company, we worked with Jeff Walker, Amy Porterfield, Tony Robbins. Russell Brunson was an in-person client. He was my biggest. So I ran an event for 5,000 people working for Russell, which I learned how to put on an in-person event. And
that's a big event.
Yeah, it was huge. And so really those are the people that I worked with. And what I took away from the company was really the strategy piece, that there was a framework that if you deliver your sessions in this order and then make an offer at this specific time, that you can have an event that converts at least at 20%, which is really good for a high ticket offer of $10,000 or more. So I got to learn, the structure of how do you create content that does the selling for you, which is really cool. And which is what I teach people how to do now. And the other thing I really got to learn is how to actually create a high ticket offer. Because a lot of people feel I have to add more content to charge more. But really, when you pull back what these people were Tony, not so much Tony Robbins, but Dean, Jeff Walker, and all of them were doing, they were just adding a little bit of more access and not so much more framework. And so I realized kind of the through line of how do you have a free thing, then your low ticket, and then your group coaching program, and how do you actually create a business strategy that kind of funnels that same person from your free thing to your top of the pyramid thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I help people figure out their through line for their business as well. And I learned that from working at Sage. And then I do the production piece as well. So I help find the studios and run the AV team, and then also run the strategy for the event.
Okay, beautiful. So now from me to you as a potential client, because I'm probably going to hire your ass.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, I'll give you kind of my big vision, and then maybe you can walk me through how you would maybe educate someone in this position and give them advice and then bring them in to guide them.
Yeah, I'm great.
So I never really wanted to be a coach or a mentor or any of that stuff originally. I'm a multifamily real estate guy, go buy apartments and renovate them, add value with investors, and that's what we do. But I had a lot of people seeing what I was doing and am doing and saying, hey, like, do you teach this stuff? And this started like 2 years ago. And I said, well, no, I don't really teach it. We're just doing it. And I didn't really think anything of it. But then I sat back and said, okay, well, why don't we just create some on-demand stuff that people could take at their own pace, just some on-demand courses. And so we did that. And we put up a couple, like a $97 course and then a $997 course. And they would take that at their own leisure. And people loved it. They thought it was great, very informative, a lot of info, a lot of value. But then they kept coming in closer and saying, well, this is all great, Justin, but like, could you handhold? Can you mentor? Like, do you mentor? And I said, I just don't have the time. Like, I can't do one-on-one mentorships. And they're like, okay, well, so, but then I got to thinking and I said, really my vision is this. What if we could create, because my goal is to get to 10,000 units, right? We're at 1,000. We want to get to 10,000 units of ownership and $1 billion of real estate or more. And you don't do that alone. You do that through partnerships. You do it through collaboration. You do it through networking. Like, that's how it happens. You don't go take down, 10,000 units alone. Even Grant Cardone's not doing that. So what you can do is build a community of well-trained investors around the country that you're helping become successful and getting into their first 10 unit or 20 unit or 30 unit or whatever it is deal. And by doing that, you're creating community as well, where people are collaborating, they're sharing, they're growing, they're interacting around the country. And then additionally to that, now they're bringing deals to the table that are larger, right? Because they're in areas that I'm not in, not seeing, areas that, so on, where they can't take them down alone. And we can't take them down alone, but collectively we can. So now everybody's winning more because now first of all, we're seeing deals we wouldn't see otherwise. They're getting into deals that they otherwise couldn't get into, and everybody's winning. That's the big vision. And so we created Multifamily Schooled, which is the company and the community whereby this is happening. And we started I call it the one-to-few approach on the mentoring, to where it's not a one-on-one. I have a one-on-one, it's just a lot more expensive. But a one-to-few approach where every week we'll have a small coaching environment with me, not some hired coaches, that I'm in a session of 5, 8, 9, maybe 10 people max. And we're helping them learn and getting a lot of Q&A and access, like you said to me, and collaborating and growing and teaching them and right through the process of buying their first, say, 10, 20, 30 unit apartment building. And then from there, they get into their second and so on. And it's a lifetime community, right? Lifetime community where people can come in and do this. But I have bigger, I want to, what I don't want to do is become a conveyor belt system like I've seen people go through, where they spend a grip of money in these programs and they don't get good fulfillment. They don't get access to the actual mentor, and they're left feeling like, I didn't get any result. Number one, I spent $10, $20, $30, $40,000 and I got nothing. Now, granted, they got to do their work. Everybody has to do their portion, but the fulfillment wasn't there. And they didn't get the access in the community, in the growth, and the result that they've spent a lot of money for. So I think doing these kind of hybrid events, things that you're talking about, are critical to that. But I want to drive community and growth in doing that. Kind of like Pace Morby's done.
Okay.
I presume you know who Pace Morby is.
I know of them. So Sage Event Management actually ran their last event, but I wasn't working with the company.
Okay.
But I have heard of them.
Oh, okay. Like the one down in Florida, I think they did, like the Subject 2 Summit or something.
Yeah,
Sub 2
that
Summit.
was my old boss's event that they produced.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I love how he's created a community. He's actually done a nice job with it. And with that, that's how he took his portfolio from, 10, 20, 30 million bucks to now $400+ million in assets.
Mm-hmm.
And by teaching people really well, creating community, collaborating, where he's either buying their deals from them, partnering on deals with them, growing the community, all that, but it's community focused. And then, I've heard pretty good things about it. And granted, he's in more of the single family space and other types of stuff, just some multifamily, but mostly single family stuff. But I wanted to mimic that concept for multifamily to help people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the big vision behind it. So sorry, I went off on a rant there, but I'm really curious from your perspective how someone like me who's newer to it and we're growing it. I mean, I think we're just now going to have our first $100,000 month. But we haven't gone into the events setup yet. It's all, bring them through, online funnel process to a strategy call to moving them through into the mentorship, right?
Got it. So it's an evergreen.
But we have not done any. Yeah, as you see, we have like the live Tuesday free things that we put on, and those are great. We'll typically get 80 to 90 registrants. Half of those show up, so we get 30 to 40 people on the call, on the live Zoom. And then we typically will get 6 to 8 people to raise their hand.
Yeah.
And that's
awesome.
kind of how that's been going so far. Yeah. It's just a matter of how can you scale that further and then, really start doing community events and other things behind that bring people physically together, not just virtually. Yeah.
Yeah. So it reminds me of, so have you heard of Jeff Walker? Because he has a model that I think this would work.
I have. I'm probably going to have to Google him after this.
Okay, yeah. Well, he has a coaching program. And so his model is he has an event called Product Launch Formula, where he has the event and he teaches you his process on how to launch. You get to the event and then he makes an offer for Launch Club. And Launch Club has 3 different tiers. It's launch. So if you are like just starting to launch or you're doing some launches, but they're not doing that well, it's called like the launch level. And then he has the scale level. So you've started to do multiple launches and you're hitting a certain revenue and you're in the scale level. And then the third one is impact. And so like this is like where you get into you having multiple launches and it's not so much about money, but it's about how do you actually create impact. And why I'm bringing this up for you is I could see it's like a coaching program that is your multifamily school, but you have tiers. And it's kind of, because the thing is like with a coaching program is you want them to get results and you want there to be an ascension plan. And so it's like first, like your group coaching program is like, how do you get your first, I think you said 1,000 to 10,000 like unit. And that's like your very first tier. And then you have incentives, like once you hit, like you're doing this many amount of deals, then you're in this level, and then there's a top level. And so it gives people it's like, it helps people actually have a goal of where to get to and a framework to follow so that you're getting those results. And they can kind of see the through.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you're like graduating, right?
Yeah.
Like you're graduating through high school.
Yeah, exactly. And then have you heard of certification, like the certification model? Because I wonder if that would
where you bring them through and they get certs, right, as they go through the program. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And so like if you had, are they investors, right? It's like more getting them certified to be an investor in a multifamily property.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And so it's like you're a certified investor. And so they borrow your authority and they're able to get more deals, but then you get a percentage of those deals. And so I wonder if there's a world that you could do that, where it's like a certification.
There is, and there's other models that do that as well. I mean, that's kind of the partnership side of it, right? Because, once they have shown that they can get through level 1, call it, and we've helped them do that to where they get their first couple deals. Well, now we can start partnering together. right? As you'd said, and grow together to where you're certified now. So now, yeah, we'll put our name on things with you and let's go do some bigger deals together.
Yeah.
So I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. Working with you. And then
I get a lot of people that are like, well, let's partner from day one. And I'm like, well, you have to understand, like we need to know, what you're doing a little bit, and we can help you do that. And then certainly once you have your first or two deals underneath you, now we can go and start doing some bigger stuff together.
Yeah. And I think that's similar to Alex Hermosi, kind of the acquisition piece. It's like he teaches you how to scale your business. You get at a certain revenue and then he buys your business from you.
Right. He'll come in and actually invest and come in that route.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So on the events, how do these 3 days work? I mean, how would you coach somebody through that and put on an event for them, or and kind of come in and consult alongside them? How does that typical process work with you?
Yeah. So the very first thing that I'll do is I start with sales strategy. And so what's very different about like an event planner and then what I do, which I call an event strategist, is I'm actually focusing on how are you going to make money first. And then the logistics is the second piece.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the very first thing we would do together is get clear on your offer, because how you design your content, your marketing message, and all of that, there should be a through line. So that way, if they fall in love with your marketing message, they fall in love with your event content, they fall in love with your offer. And so that's where we would start, is really getting clear on the offer, who it's for, and really nailing that so that you can create a marketing message and you can create event content that's like, oh, this is a no-brainer for me. So that's kind of where I start. And then the second piece is actually content creation. So once you figure out the offer, you just reverse engineer the offer into the content, because the idea is if they taste a little bit of your offer, then they're like, oh my God, I can like imagine a whole year of this program. I need this because this was only 3 days. Imagine a whole year of it and what kind of results I'll get. So that's kind of the psychology of the content structure. And then it's really planning all the logistics. So like we send swag, for example, to help with show up conversions. And so doing all of that and doing all the audio visual pieces and the production pieces. But first we start with offer strategy and content strategy, and then logistics, and then bringing the team on board and like training the team on how to overcome objections and things like that.
On the sales side, you're saying?
Yep. Yeah.
Gotcha. So if you wanted 100 people at your virtual event, how many registrants typically do you need to have?
So I'm not good at math, but the show up rate, if you do it the way that, like with the different swag and email sequence, like a really strong email sequence, then you're seeing about an 85% show up. So it's really, but you also
85%,
85, but it's paid.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Which I agree on the paid. And then I think I was listening to Krista Mayshore. Do you know who she is?
I do.
Okay. Because I met her because I used to be a realtor. She's used to be a realtor, or still is a little bit. She was with EXP, and I met her a few times down in Cabo and some other events and things. And she's kind of grown her coaching side of things. Yeah, and she does a 3-day event. I always felt, are they long? I mean, how do you, is it hard to get people to keep coming back after day one? I'm sure you guys have strategies for all this stuff.
Yeah, so there's strategies for all of it. So it first starts with the marketing message, is that this is an event. So we have to get them from the mindset of like, this is a live stream, a webinar, a challenge, where it's like short bursts, right? So you really have to do the training from your, like at the beginning. And that's through like your sales page and the copy that you're putting on it, because it's an interactive 3-day event where we roll up the sleeves and we get the work done. So for you, like your event content could be it could be like for the new investor, if that's who you target. I would have to kind of figure out if you're more like advanced or new, but let's pretend for this conversation, it's somebody that is just starting out and they're dabbling in the idea of they want to start investing in properties. Then your whole theme of your event can be about how to get your first deal. And you literally walk them through high level, the different phases and frameworks of getting your first deal in each session. And then when you make the offer is actually, because we know that people need like integration and implementation, and they actually need handholding to get it done. It's like, I've given you my process. You can go and get your first deal, But if you're finding that you need a little more handholding and more accountability, and you need somebody there to make sure you don't get stuck, that's where my group coaching program comes in. And so the whole theme of your offer would be, your theme of your event would be get your first deal, and your offer is get your first deal. And you actually walk them through the process.
Yeah, and that is basically what I deal with. I'd say 95% of the folks that we coach and mentor today, they may come from other areas of real estate investing, or they're like a doctor, an attorney, or other people that are maybe higher net worth and have a good paying job, but they want to get into it. But they're definitely new or newer that come in and are trying to get their first multifamily, like 10, 20 unit deal, because they've been in smaller real estate type deals, and now they want to go a little larger into the quote unquote multifamily space. So I'd say a very, very small percentage are already in it and trying to scale, at least so far. Would love to get to those, because those are, and sometimes more fun, because they already have the sophistication. So scaling it's a lot easier. Whereas 95% of them are brand new or newer. Yeah. And I think, sorry.
No,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's really great about the 3-day model is you can attract, like, let's say the majority of your audience is going to be the new investor. Like they're just dabbling, or they just had a side hustle at the moment. You get them in, but then you can have a upsell option. So because the reality is you're going to get the majority of the new people, but you may get some outliers who are more advanced that are just kind of like, oh, I want to learn this process. And so on day 2, before you make the offer, you can have a price anchor offer that is like, this is my done for you. Like if you want to partner with me, for example, and it's, let's just say your coaching offer is $10,000. This 1-to-1 higher level package is like $25,000. And so you can,
Gotcha.
So you can make both offers without creating confusion, but we would create the all roads lead to offer for that new person, like the person that most of your audience would be.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, jumping off of the professional side for a minute onto your personal side. What do you do in your daily life outside of work?
So I have a fun routine. So I don't actually, because it's just me, I don't start working until I start taking calls like no earlier than 10. But I like to get up and do my workout. I've started walking a lot because I walk 5 miles now. I'm trying to get the 10,000 steps a day. So really,
nice.
So really trying to focus on my health. And then I'm obsessed with contrast therapy, which is like sauna and cold plunges.
Yeah. Do you do the red light beds?
No, not yet. But the gym facility that they are opening, it's called Mind Zero. They're going to have that in the studio. So I will try it.
Gotcha. So you'll do the sauna, cold plunge back and forth between those. And is there like a routine you do? Like how many times back and forth?
Yeah. So right now the studio, and this is actually a really good marketing technique. So I'll tell you, I'll tie it into marketing too, but they are a new studio that they haven't actually opened yet, but they are having pop-ups. And so you could get a founder's membership for like $20, and they have like 3 pop-ups a week right now. And you go and you only do the sauna for 10 minutes and then the cold plunge for like 3 minutes. But the idea is once you actually join the membership and the studio's open, you go back and forth for like 45 minutes. But it's literally such smart marketing because it's like, here, sample the studio, the pop-up studio. And then if you love what you're doing here, imagine actually being able to do this for a full hour and having a membership. Such good marketing.
Oh, interesting. So they'll literally do a little pop-up to entice people in and then come into an actual studio later once you like it.
Yeah, exactly. It's an event. It's the event strategy right there.
In 3 days, okay. So I don't get on the personal side yet. Let's talk more I'm on the professional side. I want to talk more personal.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in the last, say, year or two that, because when did you leave the other company? Pretty recent?
Yeah, in October of last year.
October of last year. Why did you leave them? And is it on good terms, I guess? And then share with me your big vision.
Yeah. So I left in October of this past year, and it was really a buildup. Like, I started to really have like a little resentment because I knew that I wanted to start my own company. And my boss at the time really wanted me to become her, and she would only focus on like Tony Robbins and Dean, and I would take more of the like smaller clients, which would have been like the very first time in her company that she allowed someone to move up to that. But what I found was that she couldn't really let go. And so it just kind of like, there were things that happened in the company where I was just like, I'm never going to have full control and reach my full potential because I'll always be like micromanaged and looked at
a bit.
Yeah. And looked at like a daughter because I started 7 years ago when I was 25, and I was with them for 7 years. And so I kind of had that daughter person, like it was like that dynamic of their daughter. And so the way that I got treated sometimes, like I got treated well, but it was more like the respect. It was like, good job, like good girl, like type of personality.
Gotcha.
That can, you know,
do you think they feel that was I mean, are they looking at it now like, oh yeah, maybe we did kind of do that, or do you think they see it totally differently?
I think they see it totally differently. Like, I feel like they set me up, and she created me in a way and really helped develop me. And so I don't think she sees it that way, but there were just certain like behaviors that once you are a grown woman, you don't want to be told like, you're good job, like a kid, you know? So I don't think they knew that was kind of how I felt, and I should have spoken up about it, but that's a whole nother problem that I need to work on. But that was the start. It was just that feeling. And then I ran ClickFunnels, Funnel Hacking Live last September, and it was a $5 million budget. And she wanted me to,
wow.
Yeah, it was huge. She wanted me to finish that budget in a very short time, and I just couldn't do it. But I pushed myself to try, and I ended up not sleeping and just kind of not taking care of myself. And I just realized that I couldn't do this anymore, and ended up in my 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of intense pressure leading into that. Walk me through that ClickFunnels Live, and how an event like that gets put together for Russell Brunson, because he's like what they call it, the master of marketing, right?
Yeah.
And especially at live events, and he sells a gob of stuff at his events. I mean, even Kate she was joking. Yeah. She's like, I got swindled into it, and I told myself I was not going to buy anything.
Yeah, Russell can sell, that's for sure. Yeah, so the first thing that we did for him is I was in charge of the site selection. So that's the very first step there, is getting clear. First, you have to be clear on your numbers and your projections and all that. And then he did a lot of his content by himself and offer strategy. So we really focused on the logistics. It wasn't as much of the strategy piece. So it was kind of thinking through every single thing from like the very first touch point of registration to the very first time you make an offer, like what is the actual flow of everything. So I really built out kind of a minute by minute, like this is what the diagram looks like. This is where people go in. This is where they exit, that type of work for him. And I would say the coolest thing that we did at this past one, which was an up level in conversions, was we had he does a photo booth, like a photo if you buy from him. And we added a like champagne toast, and I put I say champagne toast because he doesn't drink, but it was like a fake champagne. What do you call it? Like grape juice in a, what are they called? Champagne glass. And we had servers walk the line and give them appetizers and fake champagne. And so that was like a cute little thing we did for him. But yeah, the biggest thing with Russell... Yeah, it's a lot of moving bodies. So a lot of thinking through every single thing, like what could happen, you know? So a lot of hours went into that.
So when you get to the point, is he making the offer multiple times throughout the event? Is it a 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day event?
Okay. So Russell is 4 days. So it's 3.5 days. He doesn't follow to a T the model that I'm referring to that like Dean Graziosi and Jeff Walker and all of them use. He does it a little differently. But once he hits day 3 and he makes the offer, it's the same. And which is you make the offer and it's just to get it out there and like go over the slide deck, reveal the price. And that's the initial offer. But then and then every session after that is a repitch. Like it's literally the content is to drive them to make a decision. And so on day 3, like you have a welcome lunch. So that way people buy, because the other thing is you have to create urgency in a virtual event or in-person event. And so you repitch them and it's like, if you want to join us in this at the welcome lunch, then you have to make a decision to be in the program. And so that's kind of a call to action. So to answer your question, it kind of is it just continues to be a repitch after it's out.
Gotcha. And I'm trying to think of, like, I went to an Aspire conference about a year ago.
Okay.
And that had, Andrew Cannoli and a handful of others, right? And I thought the way they handled their pitch, which was super cool, is and it was cheap too. It was like $497, okay?
Mm-hmm.
To get into the money game day, on another date. But man, they had an army of people where you couldn't get out of the room without filling out one of these forms.
A rush. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's how Russell does it. I haven't been to one of his events. But is there a process flow for that? Like once the pitch happens, how do you have people standing in huge lines, or is it more of they literally probably had 100 salespepeople walking around with, the
order forms,
planks with a paper on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just filling it out real quick with your credit card and boom. And they're just charging up the yin yang. I can't even imagine how many. It was just, there's no line because it happens so fast because they have so many people to take the orders. I was like blown away by it because I actually did it just so I could see the process.
Yeah. So with Russell, and it's funny because I can talk about how it works in a virtual audience too, but for in-person, you make the offer and we have a back table and that's where team is located. And we position team behind the table, and those people are the people that like take the credit cards, and it's just very like, they know they're all in for the program. They don't have any questions. And then we have team in front of the table. That's like, if people have questions about the offer, then they can ask questions. But the idea is it's controlled chaos because you want it to feel like, oh my God, like it's kind of like the social proof piece, right? Where if you see a huge line of people, like a stampede run to the back table, then you're like, oh, I need to get in because look at all these people getting in. Like this.
Correct.
Yeah. And so it's actually very intentional. And it's controlled chaos. It's very chaotic, but it works.
Because you'll have people come up and ask questions, but people that are ready to go and sign up, that'll be handed to the team behind them. That'll run everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Gotcha. And with virtual, it's you create like a virtual sales lobby. So you use Zoom where there's like a button and they click it and they're popped into a room, and then you use the breakout feature and there's like offices for people to ask questions. So it's very similar, but it's just.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, it's wild. That whole world is so wild. It's something we'll have to talk more offline about too, because it's because my big, like, it's not about the mentorships and courses as much for me. That's an important piece of the puzzle because people need to be well trained. But it's to get them to be successful. That's very important for me. The fulfillment side is really important for me. And it's about the community, because I know that if I can get people successful on their first couple deals and get them into a community that collaborates, then we're going to get access to bigger deals for us. Yeah. That we can collaborate with them on and get to 10,000 units. You see how I'm putting it together, because it's not just about being a coach, mentor guy, coaching people and putting people through a cycle, because they always say that those who can't do teach. right? Which probably has some reality to it. I don't want to be known as that. I want to be known as the guy who's out there doing it and executing beautifully, but also helping people do the same thing, and then having a great community that's collaborating and active to do that. Like that's the vision, I guess.
Yeah, I could see you having like you have your group coaching levels, right? Like, so you have like the different levels in the coaching program, but then you get to a point where you just have a mastermind where you don't teach, but you have to be at this point making this much money and have this many, multifamily properties to be eligible for the mastermind. And then that is like how you stay connected and do deals with them.
Yeah, and even feeling, like you said, maybe there's different levels, but like even Pace Morby, for example, he does like random pop-up meetups because his community is quite large, to where he'll say, hey, I'm going to be in San Diego on such and such dates. We're going to do a pop-up get-together with everybody that's in the region. Boom, let's go. And which I love. I think it's amazing. And then that's more of just a meet and greet and get to know each other and talk some more and, get down to the level of people that just come in who are newer, because it feeds itself up. And then, yeah, you're right. You may have your mastermind. Do you know who Cole Gordon is? He's with he's the CEO of Closers.io. Okay. Because he's who I went through to kind of learn this game of, he runs like Patrick Bet-David stuff, even Grant Cardone's teams. He provides two levels of things. Number one would be the sales team, the sales people for your organization. So he'll train them, provide them, and put them in place. So that's number one. The other side of it is to teach you how to craft an offer, put it in place, run your ads, your different funnel strategies and all that. So you got like the front end side of it as well, and run a team and that whole organizational side. And then they'll place the team for you too. So that's kind of, they have two things I'd say they do. But he he taught me that whole game. They're doing like 3-4 million a month with his company. Like, wow. It's stupid. It's pretty wild. So, yeah. But yeah, I got to meet him last year about this time. And, a few months later, I ended up hiring them because we did okay, but we weren't growing or scaling. And we had to refine the offer, number one, the funnel method we were using, and the messaging for that to bring them in. And once we did that, we saw a dramatic change. But there's always ways to grow and learn and all that. So very interesting.
With your coaching program now, what else included in the delivery, and what's the promise of it?
That we're going to help you locate your first multifamily deal that makes financial sense in 90 days or you don't pay.
I love that.
So I could literally give you I could give you the breakdown of what's included in it. I'd have to share that with you on an email and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty extensive. I mean, I can tell you this. For what we provide, for what we charge, there are programs that charge twice as much sometimes and don't even deliver nearly that. But I'm okay with that. Because I'm on board with over delivery and giving people access to come into a community that then gets well trained and collaborate. Because I'm on a bigger vision for it. I'm not here to just sell courses and mentorships. That's not the end game.
Yeah, I can tell how much integrity you have, and I love that about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because a lot of people are.
Yeah, it's about getting rich owning real estate. It's honestly, because it's I literally just had a speaking event with Cody Sperber. Do you know who he is? Cody Sperber. So he's having a huge event. It's called Clever Summit. So it's Cody Sperber and Clever Investor, all that other stuff. You can look him up, but he's kind of like the initial mastermind guy behind a lot of these coaching guys, from Pace Morby to all these guys.
Okay.
And so I just had a speaking event with him in Phoenix, and he just sold his entire education company to Chris Crone. Do you know who Chris Crone is by chance?
No.
So Chris Crone is, one of these other real estate guru guys. A lot in the a lot of it in the single family space. But yeah, he sold his entire education company to him. And the reason he did it is he said, we were doing $20, $30 million a year with the education company and doing events and all those other things. And it was great. But you get so deep into it that, you're either forced to either go and keep going at it or not. But what he didn't do, which he says he wished he had done, was really, really focus on community and collaboration and leveraging the community to grow his portfolio. Because if you do that, then everybody's winning. Because now your community's winning because they're getting rich off of real estate and growing their portfolios and growing their wealth and for them and their family and their desires for freedom and financial freedom and generational wealth and all these things that they're trying to achieve. And by doing that, then now they're producing opportunities for you, meaning you, Cody, right? Or you, Justin, because they're bringing deals and opportunities to the table for collaboration and partnerships that you otherwise would never see.
Yeah.
And now you can grow your portfolio and get to where you want to go, because he wanted to go all in on just real estate and buying real estate. I said, I totally get you, because that's how you get rich, like super rich. But I said, you can leverage your community and teaching people and coaching people in that community to get rich alongside you. Because what he did is just teach, and had a very massive system for that. But I don't think the community was there where he could leverage the community to help him grow real estate rich. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it totally makes sense. And I think like what's really great about high ticket offers is that it's all about making sure you have community. And so I could see like in your coaching program, it's like you have these member events that are spread across so if you do like a group coaching program, you have member events that happen quarterly, and that can be a way that they can like network and meet each other. But no,
and you could do them on the West Coast, Midwest, and East Coast type thing. Yeah, once a quarter. And
they're like fulfillment events. And they're really so that you can meet and like partner with different people. That's really cool.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you could do three of them a year, West Coast, Midwest, and East Coast. And they could be kind of like the pop-ups, a little more formal, but kind of pop-ups, where people come together. It's more of a networking event, or not so much an actual stage event type thing.
Yeah. The other thing,
because that's really the goal behind it is that community environment, teaching people, getting them to where they want to go with their first couple of deals, and now in the community, and then helping us grow, because now they're bringing deals to the table and we can collaborate and partner. Because then you're getting the best of both worlds, and you're not just some teacher guru guy out there teaching and not executing.
Yeah,
that was my biggest, I guess, peeve behind never wanting to do it in the first place. Because I'm like, those who teach don't do, man. So like, why would I do that?
Yeah, no,
I want to go. Yeah.
I think what's beautiful about the coaching industry is you can create whatever it is you want for the lifestyle that you want and for the mission that you want. And so you can design this education space, like your education space, to create that community. And that's what's beautiful about I think this industry is you can literally create whatever you want that's in alignment with who you are and what you want to achieve.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's just, it's having strategy behind that. And I guess getting help with that too. Where do you see these things going? Are you seeing the industry getting hit pretty hard right now?
So not so much. Like one of my clients, he just had his biggest one yet. And he's selling a $12,000 program. And I think it depends on what you're selling, right? Like, I think where you're going to struggle is selling something that's more personal development, where there's not an ROI. But I think right now with where, we are in the economy, what it will do well is when you can teach people how to make money, because there's a clear ROI. Like, so for you, it's like you want to learn how to make money in 90 days. I'm going to actually show you how to get your first deal. And within 90 days, you see that investment back. And so for something like that, it's not a hard time, because people can literally do the math and say, I'll make my investment back. But where it is hard is when you have personal development. because you don't have that money argument. That's like, because people are scared to spend money right now,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, with cost of everything.
Yeah.
So, they want to feel like they are getting an ROI within a reasonable time frame.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So I think it depends on how you position your value, right? Like it's a value,
Gotcha.
like conversation.
Yeah. Cause I see, and I've talked to other folks in the space and, even Ryan Pineda, and, they're tweaking their strategies a bit based on them seeing the education space being challenged, right? Where a couple of years ago, it was gung-ho at it, and then they've seen a pullback on the high-ticket stuff. And I don't know if that's just across the board or if it's specific to certain gurus, call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
I think the thing that I will say, like with high ticket, is even if it's hard to find those buyers, like you're still going to make more money. I feel like because you make more with less volume when you have a high ticket, where if you're struggling to get people into your low ticket thing, you have to find more people just to make that work. So.
Well, yeah. And then, like, what do you think about subscription programs?
Subscription programs, I've seen like memberships. I think what's really hard about memberships is you have to put so much content in it to get people to renew. And so
and not churn. Yeah. And don't have that high churn rate. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we did high ticket offers, when I was working with Sage and what I've been doing now, we don't do like subscription models. Like it may be a 12-month program and you pay monthly, but you're in for the whole year. And so we don't so much do like cancel whenever.
Yeah. And how do you make sure people are paying the whole year?
So I wasn't so much on the fulfillment side, but it's kind of like you get them in and you just have to make sure like your content, you have to look at when you're designing like a program delivery, that each call is a renewal strategy. And so making sure that every call that you get on that you're delivering, because it's just like, if somebody doesn't buy your program today, like doesn't mean they're not going to buy it next time. Right. So it's kind of preparing for that next thing. And so it's just reminding them to, like there's so much value here. And I think that is really what helps with stick strategy, like getting them to stay.
Sure.
Yeah. And not doing all your deliverables. Oh, sorry. I was just going to add,
no, go ahead.
And making sure that your deliverables like are really juicy. And even in the fourth quarter, right. That you have something that is so juicy that they're like, because if they don't pay, they don't get access, right? Like you're going to revoke their membership or access. And so having something even at the end that is so juicy that they're like, oh my God, I can't miss this is really critical too.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it could be event based too.
Yeah.
Right. So there's ways to entice that. It's good. So back on the personal side real quick, you said you kind of limiting belief systems. Have you done any therapies, any hypnosis, any of that stuff at all?
Yeah. So I have a therapist, and I will say it was like books is what really helped me. It was Wayne Dyer, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And I just read so many self-help books that it just became my way of being. And just like one day I just woke up and it wasn't a problem anymore. So I did all that woo-woo affirmations and, vision board and all that. Now I don't do it as much, but I think I reprogrammed myself to not look at myself and be like, oh, keep the light off,
Gotcha. Married, not married, spouse, no spouse?
Not married.
Where's that out on the personal side?
Yeah. So not married. I do have a significant other. It's long distance like you. He lives in DC. Yeah.
How's that working out for you, Kristen?
Yeah. We're having conversations about maybe me moving to DC. So we've been together like 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. But long distance is hard, right? Like you have to be a better.
How often do you guys see each other?
Once a month. So not a lot.
Yeah. With Kate and I, obviously we're pretty close. I mean, we call it a bunny hop flight to Las Vegas or vice versa to San Diego. It's a 38-minute flight. So it's quite easy. And we have business out there. I mean, I have business out there as well. So that helps drive that. But yeah, I had hindrances about it, when we had first met, even though the connection's so strong, like, oh gosh, I mean, is this really what I'm looking for? And do I want to deal with this and all the things that come with it? I mean, there's pros and cons.
For sure.
But I said, if I am going to do this, then, and I think she was on board with this, then we can't go any more than 2 weeks without seeing each other. So we had to commit to that and figure out ways to do that. But that just means either she's in San Diego or I'm in Las Vegas at least once a month. So that way, every 2 weeks, we're seeing each other. And in this, having incredible communication is very important. And then also having a big vision for down the road, what that's going to look like. Because obviously we have kids, right? She has kids and I have kids. So we can't just like pick up and move. It's not quite that easy. So with the kids in school where she's at, and then the kids in school where I'm out in San Diego. So we had to come to the reality that, look, if, fast forward a year or two down, or, whatever it is down the road, we basically have to have 2 family homes. Like, we're going to have 2 homes and live in 2 places and be able to come and go, between those 2 places and have 2 houses as a family. If it gets to that point, one in Vegas and one in San Diego. And that's how it would have to be until the kids were to go to college at some point down the road, where maybe you don't need that or whatever. But that had to be talked about pretty early. We couldn't just, we'll get to it later. We'll talk about it later, because otherwise you're not going to commit the energy and the emotional side of it too, and get close to somebody if you don't have at least a vision plan for what it could look like down the road. So you guys it sounds like you've talked about that too. And did you have that conversation early on, or is it something that took a year to actually start to talk about, since you guys are younger too?
Yeah. He's probably your age, I would imagine.
Okay.
So, it's a 10-year gap. But
okay.
We did not talk about it. But what I found is now we're talking about it and it feels like it's kind of like in the late phase. And I wish we would have talked about it before and kind of set up like those, like, this is what it looks like and this is the vision, because now it's kind of like in that weird space where it's like, this isn't going to work if like I don't move here, because I know that you're not going to move type of conversation. So
gotcha.
We also we don't have kids, right? So it's kind of like whenever you're planning for your vision, it's kind of like, I know I want to get married, but I don't really care what else. Like, I don't care. Like, right now, I don't think I want kids, and I don't care where I live. So I guess there was no stress over the conversation. But now it's 3 years.
Meaning, you weren't sure if you wanted kids or vice versa. Does he have children or no children?
We're both yeah, I don't know. So we're indecisive people.
Gotcha. Yep.
It probably isn't great for 2 indecisive people to be in a relationship, but here we are.
Well, yeah, and it's like you said, it's we had to have those conversations early on, because I've done semi-long distance in the past, I guess, not really long distance, but hour or 2 away. But those vision talks didn't happen, and then there wasn't really a path to like, okay, are we both committed to actually seeing this through, or does somebody have 1 foot out the door, or 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because you just don't know. So yeah, I before I was gonna emotionally connect, we had to kind of have those talks pretty early on, like within the first month or 2.
Yeah. Would you say
because it's like we're at different stages, I guess. I mean, she's 37, I'm 44. So yeah, I wasn't gonna commit my energy and my time and emotions and all that stuff for someone that I'm gonna see once every couple months. It doesn't work. So yeah, we had to like say, okay, like we know the connection's incredible. Like, that's not the problem. In the chemistry and all that other stuff. And our core values, belief systems, visions are like aligned crazy, like almost scary. But that's only going to get you so far, right? So yeah, we had to have those talks, and like what could it look like, and what would it look like if we get to that point. So yeah, man, long distance.
Yeah. Well,
So you're once a month.
I'm once a month, and I think, like, knowing what I know now, I would definitely take the route that you and Kate took. But I think for me, it was like we've been together 3 years, and I didn't even know. I think I had I kind of thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but like I felt like I was kind of at a completely different career path. Like I wasn't really thinking that big vision. So I think like my question really to you is, how does that, like, because as an entrepreneur, your vision always evolves. And so have you found that like your vision, like since you've been together, it has like changed at all? Or is it still, do y'all talk about it regularly so that you're both working towards that same vision and it's staying as the same vision, you know?
Yeah, no. And if anything, it's gotten more aligned and tighter and focused. I mean, I know what she wants to do for her life. And, I shared with her, where I'm at and where I want to go. And that is in perfect alignment. I mean, we both want to impact the world.
Yeah.
And help others and give back and leave a legacy. And she wants to do it by bringing people out of their shells. Mm-hmm. And helping them through content. If they know that it's important for them, they need to do it. It's going to help them with personal brand, but also confidence. But they don't want to, and like what's holding them back, and kind of helping people break out of that shell on the personal and professional level, and being able to do that both digitally, but also on stage. Mm-hmm. I mean, she has a vision of getting on stages and sharing this. This talk and this ability for people to do it. So that's why getting on stage at WealthCon, which she just did, was such a big deal for her, because she hadn't had that chance to really get on a large stage before. And then here she is, even though it's in a panel setup, speaking in front of 1,000 people. And she'd never done that before. So that was like a first big stage talk, call it. And the first chance for her to kind of express who she is and how she can help people, along with Ryan Pineda and their whole organization. So the next big, I guess, milestone for her is to get the whole stage to herself. Because I know how powerful she can be, and the impact she can leave and help other people. Because I see it on an intimate level, like meaning when she has one-on-ones with people and how she can move people and influence them in such a positive way, where they may have been kind of in a shell, like full of anxiety. Yeah. And now they're showcasing their true self to the world to help them personally, but also professionally. Mm-hmm. And that's huge. That's a huge thing for people, especially if they have fear of doing that at a great level, a lot of anxiety. And then now they're doing it on social media, and it's not so scary to them anymore, and they can kind of step out of their little bubble they were in. And then that aligns with me too, because I don't want to get on stage at big events. Like, meaning, I should take that back. I don't want to have my own big events and do it. Like, that's not a vision for me, is to go throw a Ryan Pineda event or, some massive 2,000 person Tony Robbins event of my own. What I would like to do is go on other people's stages and help them, right, through other people's audiences, which then can obviously come back as my own audience, but doing it on other people's stages versus my own. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. Now, having small, like virtual 3-day events and stuff like that, where it's more virtual or a hybrid, would love to do. Or doing little boot camp workshops where there's 100 people in a room all day long. Like that I could wrap my arms around, and that, because I love the intimacy. I don't want 2,000 person events that I throw. I'll go on 2,000 person stages, but I don't want them to be my own. If I'm going to have my own, I want them more intimate, 100 person type scenarios, or hybrid virtual stuff like that, where you create community, collaboration, intimacy, access. Like that's my vision, I guess.
I love how clear you are, because I think a lot of people, especially when they're first starting out, they take on everything because they're not clear on vision. And it feels like, and it's like the most important thing that you should also know are like, what are your non-negotiables? And it's like, you're so clear on, I don't want a big event, like, and so it's like when you're designing an offer, I saw a lot of people who they're like, I'm just going to do everything and give away everything because they think that they have to, versus actually sitting down and being clear on that vision first. And it sounds like you do that in your business, but you also do it in your relationships, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, no, and it is clear. And then, having 3 homes and a ranch, or 3 new homes, I should say. So I'm looking at a new home in Point Loma here in San Diego, and then buying a home in Las Vegas if it goes there. So now you have the 2 family homes, and then having another condo in Fort Lauderdale. Because I love the Fort Lauderdale area and kind of the Palm Beach. So having a condo there, waterfront. And then my dream is to always have a ranch in Montana. Ranch in Montana. Maybe a little mini farm. I don't know.
Love that.
But that's definitely there. Big on the philanthropy side. So the 3 philanthropies that we give back to the most is Tunnels to Towers. Are you familiar with them?
Mm-mm. No.
So Tunnels to Towers was started after 9/11 with the focus in giving back and providing mortgage-free homes to spouses and their kids left behind by fallen first responders and soldiers.
So good. I love that.
So it started, hence Tunnels to Towers. Tunnels, they fell.
Mm-hmm.
They're providing basically, firefighters, the police officers, everybody that died in 9/11, and yet a lot of people left behind, especially women with their kids. And now they go from being not the financial person to having to become the financial person.
Yeah.
So the biggest fear for them is having a safe roof over their head.
Yeah.
For them and their family and their kids. And this organization came in. They said, we're going to pay off your mortgage. We're going to provide you a free and clear house for you and your kids to grow up in. So at least worst case scenario, you got a house and a roof. And then takes a huge burden of anxiety off of these mothers, right? In most cases that are left behind. And now they can go out and figure other things out with, limiting the stress. And then, so that's how it started. And then it went to soldiers from, Iraq and, the soldiers and first responders. So the whole concept is to provide free and clear housing for widows and people left behind. So that's huge because now it's all real estate based, right? It's all tied into real estate.
Yeah.
And then, so that's Tunnels to Towers. And then we provide SEAL Future Foundation.
Okay.
So that helps transition team guys, Navy SEAL guys from the team life into civilian life. And both going through the mental PTSD stuff all the way through the financial and professional to get them into jobs. And they're taking people that have been at the highest level of the elite forces and camaraderie and all that team life. And now you're sticking them into a civilian. They don't know what to do, right? Both professionally and mentally, they're like a basket case. So helping them and giving time and energy and money to that organization to help transition. And then disadvantaged kids, right? Because what's hard is, there's millions of kids in the country that maybe didn't have, a good father figure or a good mentor or a role model. And, they're being raised by a single mom or no parents at all or whatever it is. And they just don't know what they don't know. And they don't even know what's possible. So what they do know is getting into bad stuff, bad problems. They know being a gang member, or stealing and theft and all these other things because they didn't have the guidance. And so you don't know that, gosh, I could go do all these things if I just knew that it was available, number one, and had a belief that it was possible, number two.
Yes.
And so going in and kind of mentoring, wrapping your arms around younger kids to at least give them the vision that, dude, you don't have to do this. And I understand your upbringing and your current situation may suck, but having some guidance in mentorship and belief is critical. It's critical to like saving these kids from going off the deep end into bad stuff where they could just pivot and at least know that they have mentorship and guidance and then a belief of what's possible. So that's another. So those 3 things on kind of the philanthropy side, at least for me.
Yeah,
So.
those are all so important. What would you say, like, are there certain things that happened in your life that made you choose those three?
Military is really big in my family. So my dad was Army, business partner, Marine. Grandfather was a Navy commander. So that whole military side of things and giving back to our men and women in the armed forces. And San Diego, we're like, most people don't realize San Diego is the largest concentration of U.S. military for the United States anywhere in the world.
Oh, okay.
So, we have the largest, like the entire Pacific fleets here. All the Navy SEALs are here, the Navy submarines, the nuclears. All the drones are built here, all the third-party contracting company. It's massive military in San Diego. So the team guys, the Navy SEALs, between here and actually, I think, Virginia, I think those are the two places for the Navy SEALs. So that's where the Navy SEAL thing came in. And then Tunnels to Towers, once again, it wraps its arm around real estate, but then also first responders and soldiers. So it's still kind of a military thing. And real estate being you're paying off people's houses so they can actually have a house. So that kind of tied into the real estate and, once again, soldiers and military. So that's kind of how that combined. And then the kids side of it, I was fortunate. We didn't grow up rich, but I had two parents in a household that provided us everything we needed, per se. And then a great role model in both mom and dad, but dad kind of being a great role model to be the transitional character in our family who went from not a lot of money to like rich, lost it all, but you see how you get there. And I know how important it is having that role model. And so it really devastates me when I see kids not having good parents.
Yeah.
I just think that's a freaking disgrace. So when it's totally available, and listen, everybody has circumstances, but watching a child who has so much ability, they just don't know what they don't know because of their environment.
Yes.
Just giving them hope, a belief, and a little bit of guidance, right? I call it keeping kids in the highway. If you think about it, because that's my entire job as a dad. Just keep my kids in line of the rails on the highway. If we're going down a 5-lane highway, you can swerve, you can change lanes, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff as a kid. I just need to keep you in the lanes of the highway. I don't want you going flying off the guardrails of the highway. And same thing with any kid, just giving them some guidance, because if they don't have it, they're going to start flying off the rails, and then they get into really bad stuff. And all they needed was a little bit of guidance, just keeping them in the guardrails and then giving them a belief and a vision for, dude, if you don't want this, cool. Then, and I know you're in a bad environment, and your parents aren't stepping up to the plate, you don't have to do that. And so, because that's they just don't know what they don't know, and they just need some guidance. So that I was fortunate, and so I don't know, I want to share it.
Yeah, so. I love that. That's because I'm very in alignment with the kids piece. Because I think I mentioned earlier, I have a niece and a nephew, and my brother is my brother's child, and they're not married. It's two different mothers, and I just kind of see the environment that they've been raised in, and can see like they don't realize what is possible. And there's so many people who have no idea what is possible because of the constraints of where they grew up. And it's just not fair, right? And so it's like, how, as these entrepreneurs or people who, how can we actually go into schools, or, how do we get into their homes? How do we get them to see that this is possible? And how do we change their mindset? Because I think the biggest thing that holds kids back is not believing in themselves. And because you can see what's possible, but if you don't believe that you can do it, it's for the 1% or whatever, then you're not going to actually do it. And so it's like the piece I think that is missing in our education system is inspiration. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have the ability to create.
100%. It's the inspiration, it's the belief. I always say that there's really two critical pieces to someone having an opportunity. One is the belief that it's even there, right? Because if all you see is drugs and this and that, right?
Yeah.
and that is your environment. Well, of course you don't know what you don't know. You just think that's the route. That's what I'm destined to do because that's what I'm in.
Yeah.
And then having somebody to, slap you around a little bit when you're not in line and keep you in the guardrails of the highway. And that's where your role model or your mentor comes in, right? If you look at every child or person that has been very successful in today's world that came from a really crappy environment, right? If you look at, take LeBron James, we have lists of these people that have been grown up in really bad situations and then where they're at today. And you look at the common denominator amongst all the ones that have done that. There's two things that they had. One was a role model, a mentor, right? And then education, like the knowledge that it can happen. So they had education and then they had a role model or a mentor in some way, shape, or form that would help guide them. Because if maybe one parent was not able to do it, maybe they grow up in a single household, right? Single mom household, whatever it may be, and they just didn't know what's possible. Well, they had some form. If they didn't have a father figure in the house, they had some form of father figure at school, a coach, or some form of a mentor role model, someone that was there to offset the single parent household in some way, shape, or form. So that role model, mentor, and then the education, meaning, hey, what's possible? The knowledge and the belief of what's possible, what I could do. Those two things, if they're out there for kids, it'll triple their chances at being successful. Triple it.
Yeah.
So just that alone. Just that alone.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that. Definitely. And I think the other piece to it too is, God, I just lost the train of thought. Talked about not like it being possible. I forgot my thought. So sorry.
Well, no, and what changed things for me a little bit was that, and we're getting ready to go down there on Tuesday to the Patrick Bet-David conference down in Florida. Kate and I are going down there, and I went to it for the first time last year. And Patrick Bet-David, he had Tom Brady, Will Guerrero, Mike Tyson as kind of his main speakers. This year he has The Rock, right? The Rock, Dwayne Rock Johnson, and Will Guerrero, and then Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama. And the first day, Patrick Bet-David gets up on stage, and he says, okay, here's your workbook. It's not like a rah-rah conference. You're not going down there for rah-rah. It's not Tony Robbins. It's very business and tactical strategy stuff. But he says, this is your homework for tonight, everybody. You're going to go through the self-identity process tonight, and it's not going to be easy. You're probably going to cry, and it's probably going to be very painful because you're going to realize some stuff that you're not proud of. But here's what I want you to do. And he throws up a big graphic on the screen. He says, these are the 7 mountains that inspire people and move nations. And he goes through them. He says, sports and entertainment, religion, government, education, business, family, and media. Okay? Those are the 7. He says, I need you to pick 3 or 4 that are most powerful and meaningful to you. And I want you to do this because money will motivate you to get moving and get going, and it's cool. But once you've made it like me, I'm worth almost $500 million. I don't need to get up in the morning. But what motivates me are these 4 things. He says, I had a successful business, so that's one of them. And I use my business to then go in and create media, which is our valuetainment company that we have for media. And then I use the media to help influence my beliefs in government. And then from government, I have my beliefs in family, which is my family personally, but also philanthropy to give back and help others impact the world. And those are my 4 inspirations that help inspire me and move nations. Because that literally gives me more power every day to get my ass out of bed and go make stuff happen when I don't need to do it. I could sit on my couch with a cup of coffee and chill out in my $24 million house in Fort Lauderdale. I don't need to do anything.
Wow.
Like I collect more money and interest just sitting on my couch. But he says, I have these 4 drivers for me now that are getting me juiced every day. And he says, you need to find those for yourself. And it's going to be a self-identity process that you're going to go through tonight. And you're going to come back and you're going to share those tomorrow. And we're going to go through this. And it's not going to be fun, but these are very, very important for you. And so I had to do it. And it was a big movement for me last year. So we're going down there again and Kate gets to experience it.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to do that because I feel like money will only get you so far, but it also like money will only push you so far too. Like when will you actually give up? And if it's just money, like it's going to be easier to give up and go back to that salary job, right? So,
well, because money just gives you choices. That's all money is. If you think about what money is just choices, right? With more money, you have more choices, right? If we literally have the same $100, we have the same 100 choices, meaning I can do all the same things you can do, and you can do all the same things I can do. But if I have $1 million in cash and you have $100, I can still do all the same things you can do, but I have 1 million more choices.
Yeah.
Because I can go give back $1 million more. I can take a trip with $1 million more. I can go spend it with, I'll do all kinds of things, but the money is simply the choices to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. It's only going to drive you so far. So you have to have the passions and the underlying inspirations that will get you moving, right? Because money, typically, the reason you want the money, I ask people when they're trying to get on our calls and our mentorships and programs, it's not about the multifamily. That's just a tool to get the money. Mm-hmm. But then I say, what is the real vision? Like, what are you going to do when you have the money? Mm-hmm. They're like, well, I want to give back to my community church. Okay. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Like, why is that so important to you? Or, hey, I want to leave something for my 2 kids, the generational wealth, right? But the money, without the money, you can't do it. So the money is the tool, but really the passion, the driver is that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I want to try the exercise whenever we get off. Can I Google it?
It's really, really, really cool. What's that?
Can I Google it, like the exercise, or is it?
You may be able to. Maybe try and look it up. Maybe do like Patrick Bet David, 7 mountains that inspire the world and move nations.
Okay.
Inspire people and move nations. Maybe there's a video that comes up about it on YouTube that he put together. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe YouTube's going to do it. Patrick Bet David, 7 mountains that inspire people and move nations, and see what comes up.
Yeah, I'm definitely
because he may have a video about that. But he put that out at his conference last year. And that was like, I was like, oh God. And then he talked about people who were extremely talented, but who are under-delivering, right, on their potential versus people that are not that talented, but are way overperforming their talent.
You're gonna have to look.
And I was like, oh crap, which one am I?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I had to look at that. Like, gosh, am I not performing to my abilities? And I came to the reality that I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm far more talented, and I'm not living up to that, to my belief and potential. So I'm like, we got to go. Because what I don't want to do, my biggest fear, Kristen, is being on my deathbed at 80 years old, having to have a conversation with my 40-year-old self and telling that self, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
like, I'm sorry that I didn't go for it, man. I'm sorry that I didn't live up to my potential, my abilities when I had the shot. I had the talent and the shot, and I just didn't go.
Yeah.
Because of whatever.
Yeah.
Fear. Yeah. It's like that, honest to God, scares the shit out of me every day. It totally does.
Well, hey, that's a good motivator, right? Like, because you have the self-awareness. And I think that's another piece when we talk about kids that we're not teaching them is how do you become self-aware and self-identify so that you can get to where you're going. Is another big thing.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. This has been amazing. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think I need to, I want to dive into, and maybe meet up with you, kind of figure out how your programming works and costs. And because I could see the next stage for us is doing a hybrid style events. And I don't know if it's like the first one we do without all the TVs and stuff, because my ideal would be to like go into Dean's studio in Phoenix or wherever else and do a kind of a hybrid event like that. Because I know that if we do it right, we could blow off the thing, right? There's no doubt in my mind about it. But I may have to start with like in studio here and doing kind of our vibe board thing and everything I do in a nice little studio setup, get one under the belt, and then blow it up after that. I don't know. You'd have to kind of guide me a bit because I've never done those. I just know that if I'm told what to do and say and execute, I'll do it. No problem. I just need guidance on that, and we'll blow the roof off the thing.
Yeah.
So,
what's great about it is it literally is a framework, and you already have a proven and tested offer. So it's literally just taking what you already have and just putting it into the framework. And then with the studio, it's just kind of
and I guess fine tuning it and kind of putting it through the framework.
Yeah. And with the studio, I mean, Dean Studio has an actual in-person audience component where you can have a workshop, and you can pop into the other room and actually like workshop with them, but you focus on the virtual because that's where most of your attendees are. But also I get the idea of like, let's actually test it, not spend as much money in a studio, see where we land. And then the second one, it's like up level it into the studio. So there's a couple of things you could do. But it sounds like you already have enough space where we could.
Because then spending, like you said, what does it be like 10. Right. And you do a, my vision too, actually and we'll probably start these, I call them our little dinners, but we have a little space here in our office that, probably sometime next year, it's on the docket to turn it into a little mini event center where you can have 25, 30 people in it. Mm-hmm. And do little mini events with a dinner, like a kind of a buffet style dinner and stuff. But then, have 25, 30 people in a live mini event center in our office. We have a space for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing.
So all kinds of things we can do.
Yeah.
But I'd like to chat with you more about that on how we do. How we do a 3-day event and kind of chat into that and kind of plan ahead. How much is it, like a month or two in advance that you have to kind of start planning out for it and do the advertising?
Roughly, I would say 8 weeks, start marketing it.
Okay.
So an 8-week window, which is about 2 months.
And then what is the typical cost for advertising? Like if I wanted to have 100 people, or I guess if we want to have, like you said, if you're doing a $10,000 offer and you have 20 people buy it, that's $200,000, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's a 20% conversion rate. So you had 100 people on your 3-day event on average. So is there like, a formula for advertising for that? How much you'd have to spend to get the 100 to 200 people on your live event or your virtual event?
So I think it really depends on your, how big is your email list, right? Because you're going to pull from your email list. And then you have to round it out with like advertising. And I see a lot of people have master classes to sell the event ticket. And so like running like a free master class like each week, I could almost see it's like the Tuesday calls that you have could turn into like a marketing strategy that's like you get an event ticket versus like actually getting them into the program. Because the idea is once they get into the event, it's an easier yes into the high ticket offer because they spend more time with you. So you could do that on Tuesdays where you're doing that. Yeah.
No, that's a good thought. Because we're doing those every Tuesday right now. And we have pretty good attendance on them. I mean, we're getting, between 80 to 100 registrants right now. And then, like I said, about 30 to 40 show up.
Yeah.
And we have about 6 people on average, 6 to 8 raise their hand.
Yeah. And you probably would have more, like if you lower your ticket and do like an event ticket versus your 90-day coaching program. Because at the event, we could sell the 90-day coaching program. Your conversion will be higher because you spend 3 days versus an hour, however long that Thursday call is or Tuesday call. But that could be a marketing strategy.
Gotcha. I like that. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's chat more offline here. I really appreciate your time. This was incredible. And I'm looking forward to people getting to know you and everything you're doing. And let's blow you up. I told Kate, I'm like, Kate, like she's really good. Are you watching her stuff? she's really good. And I said, I said, you need to like grab a hold of her before she blows up. Because once she blows up, she doesn't want to talk to us anymore.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from y'all. Because I look at y'all and I'm like, I want to be like them. Like they're doing so well in their business and then giving back and all the things that both of you are doing, personally and professionally is impressive. And so I look at y'all like these are like
you're coming fresh out of thank you for that, by the way. And it's collaboration and partnerships and helping people. This is the whole mindset of abundance and giving back and helping others, because you're fresh out of a company with Sage who did these massive events. So you're like this diamond in the rough, call it, and you got to see and execute at this super high level with these major players.
Yeah.
So the formula, like it. And now you're coming out onto your own, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you gotta get on that train before you're too important for us.
Oh, I will never be too important for y'all.
I'm totally messing around, but I see, you can see from an eye looking in, you can see how talented you are, in your abilities and your knowledge of the insight. It's just a matter of exposure for you now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. It's a game of exposure, because you could probably wipe the slate clean on knowledge. That's not your problem.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, because I definitely do feel like the hard part is the marketing, because I know the strategy because I'm lucky that I fell into it, right? But the biggest thing is, how do I get more visibility, which is why I'm grateful that you let me be on your podcast, and same thing with Kate as well.
Yeah, and then I would say doing more and more and more of it, right? Like you have the free stages and paid stages, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they call it, right? Free stages are podcasts and easy ones like this it only takes, if you think about it, only takes one or two, higher profile people to see your stuff and be like, wow, right?
Yeah.
And then away you go. So it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
So hopefully we can do that today and, see what happens.
Yeah.